ICQ Podcast episode 319, launching the Young Illinois Ham Radio Club. Well, hello friends and fellow amateur ham radio operators. Welcome to this, our 319th episode of the ICQ Amateur Ham Radio Podcast, supported by our monthly and subscription donors. In this episode, Martin, M1MRB, is joined by Leslie, Golf 0, Charlie India Bravo, Edmund, Mike 0, Mike November Golf, and Dan, Kilo Bravo 6, November Uniform, to discuss the latest amateur ham radio news. Myself, Colin M6BOY, rounds up the news in brief, and this episode's feature is a double feature. Frank, K4, Foxtrot Mike Hotel, interviews the gentleman who's launched the Illinois Young Ham Radio Club, and we've also got a report from the BRATS Rally attended by Martin, actually both Martins, and Mrs. B. Well, it's donors that keep us advert free on this show. Unfortunately, no one-off donors to thank this episode, but we really would like to thank our monthly and subscription donors for helping us out along our way. The reason why donations are important to a show like the ICQ Podcast is today it's been announced that podcasting apps are allowing their users to skip the adverts in their shows. Now, we know that adverts aren't welcome by people when they say listen to podcasts, etc. But if we can't fund it with advertising, then it's the listeners that need to help us out and pay our way. So all we ask you to do is, if you find value in the show and what we're doing here on the show, visit icqpodcast.com/donate, and whatever you send our way keeps us advert free. And as I say, you enjoy more and more of the content rather than trying to say your meat boxes, domain names and mattresses that make you bounce. So there you go. Right, well listen, let's head over to our news feature this episode, where we're going to join Martin, Leslie and Edmund along with Dan. They're going to be discussing a 47 megahertz moon bounce test that's been done, and updates to the amateur radio operating procedures. So as always, guys, hope you enjoy the show.
The ICQ Podcast. Come for a moment. Stay for an hour.
Well, hi guys, and welcome to episode 319 of the ICQ Podcast. Tonight's roundtable, I'm joined by Mr. Leslie Butterfield G0CIB. Hi, Leslie.
Good evening, Martin. It's great to be on again.
It's great to have you, mate. And as I say, we just mentioned earlier, you keep getting missed at rallies. People keep asking, where are you?
Oh, it's a bit like the Scarlet Pimpernel now. Is he here? Is he there? Where at? Well, what can I say?
Yeah, but I mean, when we go to them in your backyard, pretty much, and you weren't there, they was a bit upset. But never mind.
I've got a good reason for it, which I'll explain later.
You were working, yeah, I know. No
problem. I wasn't working. I was working hard in a classroom.
All right, I'll let you off then. We also have Mr. Edmund Spicer, M0MMG. Hi, Edmund.
Hello, Martin. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, good to have you, Edmund. And we'll talk more about the rally later. And from the other side of the pond, we have Mr. Dan Romanchik, KB6NU. Hi, Dan.
Hi, guys.
Yeah, good to have you. Now, tonight, unfortunately, Matthew can't make it because he's out of the country again. Matthew Nesser, M0NJX. And unfortunately, Ruth got a last-minute call from work saying they needed her when we needed her for the podcast. So, unfortunately, Ruth is not with us. Ruth Willett, KM4LAO, is not with us tonight. But we'll have Ruth with us on another episode, and we're looking forward to meeting her in date. So there you go. Right, moving on to our first news story. And in fairness, successful 47 gigs ham radio moon bounce. I'm struggling to get my head round 47 gigs moon bounce. Yeah, I know what it is, but 47 gigs? Interesting. Go on, Leslie, you were looking up lots about this just now. What do you think?
When I read this story, my jaw dropped because I thought, no way. Let's sort of read up at what these guys have done. And it's very, very interesting indeed. It's about the power level was only 1 watt, but was actively working on a 10 watt amplifier. And then you run a 30 watts, about 25 watts feed. And into both stations were running a 2.5 metre offset feed dishes. And then it goes into technical aspects. And then he starts talking about the type of software. Now, this isn't really my field, but I'm looking at this, and it talks about WSJT mode. Now, that's a sort of form of, my understanding is it's a form of Whisper. And I've had some good success using Whisper, the little tiny boxes you can buy commercially, and got some phenomenal results. But this is just stratospheric. It is, my jaw dropped. Just trying to get my head around what they've done. Absolutely phenomenal. And saluting you guys, great on you. Good on you.
Yeah, phenomenal. Now, Edmund, you played with satellites more from a commercial thing before you came into amateur radio, but what do you reckon of this?
It's mind-blowing, isn't it? Yes, before I got the amateur radio bug, I still have got a 90 centimetre offset dish with a motor on the back of it, so could pick up all the commercial broadcast satellites pretty much from 45 degrees east to about 37 degrees west, and lining that up was difficult enough on a particular satellite on occasions. And I know that the moon is a lot bigger than a satellite, but even so, the bigger the dish, the narrower the bore sight. So to focus a 2.4 meter offset dish rather than a prime focus dish, which I suspect may make things a bit easier, just that side of it on its own is a job and a half, to put it mildly. And to then achieve what they did, yes, okay, there's a lot of gain on a 2.4 meter dish, but even so, with those power levels going in, it's still not going to be a gigantic effective radiated power heading towards the moon. So pulling it off, and well, I just wouldn't even know where to start, other than that I wouldn't want to stand anywhere near the dish when it was transmitting. Mind-boggling. So congratulations.
Yeah, like yourself, I'm in awe of these guys doing it. Dan, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I hadn't thought about that bit about aiming the dish at the moon. That really would be quite a technical achievement. And it also got me wondering what kind of scatter they get off the moon's surface. I mean, is there some spots that scatter less than others? Because I would imagine you'd want the least amount of scatter possible. All those things are just another indication of how cool this thing is. I mean, you'd have to take all these things into account.
Yeah, well, I suppose if you've got a dish with a narrow beam you're sending up, you don't want to hit the side of a crater, do you? Because, it would make you get deflected off at 45 degrees or something. So I suppose...
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at, is like you'd want to hit a spot that's going to scatter the least.
Yeah. But, I think this is phenomenal. Just the fact that, people say, why do you do this? And well, because we can. And
because radio amateurs do. This is what drives them to experiment and do things. And we think, wow, this is what it's about.
It certainly is. It certainly is. I don't think I'll be doing this anytime soon, but it's certainly something to keep in mind.
Their technical ability is far beyond mine, and I've no hesitation in saying that whatsoever. Good luck, guys.
Yeah, good luck, guys. We most appreciate it. A very, very interesting story.
If anybody listening to this has ever done 47 gig moon bounce, please contact us.
Well, the only person likely to have done that I know would be Chris Woodmarch, who lives in North Kent somewhere, and he's done most of the microwave satellite type operations, so not his name in this list. So sorry, Chris, but you probably know more about it than most of us.
If we could get somebody on, that would be a feature or an interview that I would absolutely love to hear.
Yeah, no problems at all on that one. Right, moving on to our next news story, radio amateur operating procedures. Okay, sounds boring. What news is there in that? Well, I think it's a newsworthy story because the ACMA, the Australian communications regulator, have published a nice web page with some useful hints for a beginner to get started. Edmund, do you want to go first on this one?
Yes, it's interesting to note who published it, isn't it? Because I think I'm right in saying that the ACMA is the Australian equivalent of Ofcom as opposed to the RSGB. Is that right?
I think
That's my understanding, but if I'm wrong, I'll stand corrected.
It's my understanding as well. So it's well worth looking at because it's long enough to be useful, but not so long that it goes on for page after page after page. It's written in plain English, and even though this originated in Australia, and even though there are bits of it that are specific to that country, the vast majority of it would be equally applicable in the UK or indeed anywhere else in the world. So it's worth having a look at, even if you've been doing amateur radio since the Stone Age and you think you know everything about everything. Even then, it's still worth looking at because it's always useful to revise the basics. And after the podcast, I will be studying it carefully, Martin.
Yeah, well, when I used to do talks, I still do them for clubs. But when I first started doing them for Sutton and Cheam, some of the old boys there who have been around years, and they used to say to me, "Martin, you didn't teach me anything in that session. What you did was you reminded me of lots of things and refocused my mind." So it's kind of a refocus one, I would suggest, for some of us. Now, Dan, what's your thoughts on this one? And because you also said that the ARRL does a good publication.
Right. So this is a really nice page and a nice introduction. And as you say, nice, short and sweet. And in what I would say is that if anyone wants to then learn more about these kind of things, get the ARRL operating manual. It really does go into these topics in a little bit more depth and helps people become good operators.
Yeah, because we all need to sometimes look up something, don't we? Whether it's what bands what areas of the band plan we should be on, or procedures.
And I think that's a good example. That this doesn't say anything about the band plan, and whereas the operating manual would. So you don't want to operate slow scan TV in the area of the band where you're not going to have other slow scan TV operators, and that's what the operating manual will help you do.
Yeah. Because in your country, Dan, I hold a license for your country as well. The band plans are mandatory. You have to operate in the right area. In the UK, the band plans are a gentleman's agreement. However, this is the big however, you're not supposed to cause interference to other people. So if you go down in the part of the band where you will find CW predominantly, and you start transmitting FM, you are causing interference to other amateurs. So kind of, although ours is not mandatory, it's still important you obey the band plans.
Well, what makes it more complex here is that we have two things going on. We have the allocation set by the FCC, and then within those allocations, a further division, if you will, which are gentlemen's agreements. So, for example, you can operate CW and data across the whole CW portion of the band, but like FT8 is right around 7074, I think 7074, 778, I forget. So that's a gentleman's agreement to restrict your operating to around that frequency. See what I'm saying? It's a combination of legal restrictions and a gentleman's agreement.
Yeah. And if you want maximum operating pleasure and contacts, you obey the band plan.
Right. And that's what it's for, is to help more people have more fun with ham radio. So
yeah, that's good. Leslie, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, as we've been talking, I've been looking at the site, and I actually find it's very good. It's a good resource because there's always information that we forget. We did learn, we've forgot it, or as a new amateur come in and says, the older amateurs sometimes assume that the youngsters coming in know this knowledge. I just look at it as a really good resource. It gives people, how do I do that? How do I just send a distress call? And this lays out exactly how you do it. And it's very basic, very straightforward. And I like it. What else is there? It's international use of radio communications in the event of national disasters. Well, as we've seen, that's very, very important in Australia. You need some sort of set procedures. Over here, we've taken a slightly different stance. Over here, we have a much more, shall we say, learn your own way, which has good points and it's got bad points. But overall, I think this is a good resource and a really good effort.
And the thing is, for youngsters these days, and I apologise to the youngsters that are ham radio operators, but it does seem these days that people are in such a hurry that they feel they haven't got time to read the book. They just want to get the succinct information there and then. So the fact that this is quite a good website and not a lot of information in a short space, which can be read quickly, will probably hit the masses very good, I suggest. Right, moving to our next news story. I kind of like this one because I'm British, yeah, but British radio antenna arrives at the space station. Now, I don't know. I mean, we pretty much haven't done much as the Brits on the space station that I'm aware of. I know Tim Peake was up there a few years ago, but it's kind of nice to think that we're supplying something to it, and it's interesting. Now, I know it's a Brit story, but Dan, would you like to go first on this one?
Sure. So the one thing I wonder struck me here, I wonder if these guys are going to start operating DMR or Fusion now.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is giving them more data. I mean, the whole idea of this antenna, right, is to give them more higher speed data communication.
Yeah, certainly is. I don't think we're going to get amateur radio through it, but yeah, it's kind of trying to give them internet access at speeds on the ground, isn't it? So
yeah. So that's good. That's great.
Yeah, Edmund, your thoughts on this one?
I honestly can't think of anything to say about this, other than it's good news. Sorry, I'm not helping much, am I?
I'll let you off. Don't you worry about it. No. It's one of those things. There's not a lot to this. This is more of an announcement, but than a news discussion. So, but I just thought it was nice to think that they're actually trying to get internet speed in space, and it's British technology going up there. What do you think, Leslie?
I've just been looking at this story. I'm not really a flag waving person, but this is a good story. They've done some technical aspects on the antenna. I think it's to increase the communications capacity. And it is a bit of a good flag waving story, although we're not very good at this in this country. But there you are, Martin. That's my take on it.
Yeah, so all in all, bit of fun.
Exactly.
British technology on the space station. Yeah, we'd like to be involved. And at least we can do a bit of flag waving. So that's great. Right, moving to our next news story.
No, they found my antenna, my radio. I knew I'd dug it in the garden somewhere.
Yeah. Well, if it was yours, Leslie, you'd be in trouble, wouldn't you?
Oh, yes, just a tad.
Yeah. So the news story is spy radio found during an archaeological dig. And it says it's a 30-year-old Soviet spy set was dug up in West Germany. So it's, in fairness, come on. There were lots of things buried just in case when the Cold War was happening. It could have been one of ours. Not that we probably ever admit to it, but it could be one of ours. Go on, Leslie, you go first on this one.
What can one say? I mean, this radio should have turned up at the local radio rally, and everyone would have gone absolutely nuts. I'm sure of it. Reading through the story, they talk about the battery being totally gone. I'm not surprised at all. Hermetically sealed box. Well, if they've taken it out of one of those type of boxes, there won't be any sort of, apart from the battery, any battery leakage. I dare say it will still work today.
Yeah, it should do. And by the way, Leslie, burying a Baofeng in a sandwich box in your back garden doesn't count.
Would I do that? Look, I've got certain things buried in my garden, but both things are not. Hang on a minute. There's a flashing blue light outside.
Oh, we're being very naughty.
Oh, I know.
Dan, would you like to go next on this one?
Sure. So I was kind of interested in the design of it, So I did a little Googling and I found some more technical details on a website called cryptomuseum.com. And so it gives a few more technical details. That doesn't show the circuit though. Then I saw a link to the operating manual. So I said, "Oh, that'll be cool." Well, but of course it's all in Russian. So that didn't really help me either. But yeah, I think it's cool that the battery apparently is separate from the box. So you supposedly you could hook up any battery now to it and get it to work.
Yeah.
I don't know. There were some really weird battery voltages at the time.
Well, you hook up a DC power supply and crank in the right voltage.
Yeah, some sort of variac that sort of vibrates across the table as you're doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I'd like to see it, and when pictures start arriving, we'll have a good look at them.
There's a guy here in the Detroit area who actually builds World War II style parasets. Similar to this radio. Of course, they're a lot simpler and they're tube based, but he's an interesting guy. He's built 4 or 5 of them already.
Yeah. We've got a guy at our club that builds them, and he was sort of trying to start building replicas like that, but he's actually got an original paraset with the map. So when you were parachuted into Germany or into Europe in the Second World War, they went in and the maps were actually printed on silk, and he's actually got one with the silk map still intact, which is quite interesting to see. But they they printed on silk so it didn't rattle, and they could put it around their body or whatever if never needed to carry it anywhere without it looking too obvious. So interesting what they did. Edmund, what's your thoughts?
Nothing to add really, other than that I suppose we're very lucky that the first reaction of the authorities wasn't to send the bomb squad in and do a controlled explosion first and ask questions later. Because depending on the circumstances, if that had been in a different country, say in the UK, and archaeologists dug up what looked like a suspicious metal box when they're clearing somewhere, then controlled explosion would be my first thought. So we're quite lucky it survived, I guess.
Well, it's lucky they didn't take the Mrs. B mode of operation then, wasn't it? Because she'd have blown it up first and worried about it later. But
the thing is, how do you get these things in the house? There's only so much you can do. I mean, it's sort of. Does it get into the house gradually? Or is there an invisible space in the back of the boot? I don't know.
Well, this is going off at a mega tangent. I bought a couple of things at the rally on Sunday, and it was the end of the rally, and I wanted one thing, and the guy would only sell the 2 together. So, and he made me a stupid price, which I bought, and I took it back and I stuck it on the chair behind the ICQ table, and which Carol was there. And Mr. Rothwell said, "You're never going to get away with that." And I went, "What do you mean?" So I put it on the table in plain sight. And when we came to pack up, she said, "What's this?" I said, "Oh, I bought that." "Oh, yeah, all right." And that was it. That was all I got. so yeah, she don't give me too much grief, which is good. Right, moving on. SOTA favours a challenge for Digital Voice Week in the 1st to the 7th of March. So not that far away. And I think this might actually generate, some interest to the younger members that are interested in the digital modes. For those of you who've got D-Star and C4FM and DMR, also including free DV, there's a good chance that you can actually operate digital from hilltops. Dan, what's your thoughts?
Well, it's this is the way things are going. I like the free DV kind of thing. I still haven't actually implemented free DV on my new Flex, but that's on my list of things to do. And I think digital voice is pretty much the wave of the future.
Yeah, there's lots of different modes at the moment, but hopefully, it'll be nice when it consolidates a bit. But even so, there's enough people out with all these modes that should make it worthwhile. Edmund, what's your thoughts?
Okay, so in the UK, most use of these digital voice modes, by which I mean C4FM, DMR and D-Star being the main three, are used either through repeaters or people transmitting into their hotspots at home. Not many people overall make contacts simplex using any of those three modes. If you're activating a SOTA summit, then for a contact to count towards your score, it has to be simplex. You're not allowed to use repeaters. And some of these modes will get through unscathed at very, very weak signal levels. For example, C4FM, Yaesu System Fusion. I remember sitting on top of a hilltop a couple of years back, listening to a C4FM simplex QSO, and on my Yaesu FT991 that I had in the car at the time, the strength was barely enough to light one little light on the S meter. So it was S1 at best, and at times it wasn't even that. And yet, all the way through, the audio was, apart from a very few minor distortions, the audio was perfect and 100% readable. And certainly in traditional FM at that signal strength, there is no way that I would have been able to listen to that conversation. It might well have been one of those signals where I could detect that there was somebody on the frequency very, very distantly, but I wouldn't be able to make out a single word that they were saying. So I'm pleased that the powers that be have come up with the suggestion of doing this during the first week of March. And if you miss it during March, you can do it again during the first week of October, I think it is, because Digital Voice is the Flavours challenge for October as well. I don't know about 50 megahertz and 70 megahertz, 6 and 4 meters. On 2 meters, the digital voice calling frequency is 144.6125. So that's the place to listen. If you are on 70 SEMS, it's 438.6125. On 70 SEMS, when you QSY, assuming that you do at all, because on 70 SEMS you might take the view that you stand a better chance of staying on the calling frequency, as frowned upon as that is in some quarters, as a way of making yourselves easily discoverable. But if you do QSY, then on 70 SEMS you go up and down by 12.5 kc steps. So if you're going downwards, you go to 438.600, going up 438.625, and so forth. On 2 meters, the band plan, funny we've mentioned band plans already, isn't it, says that digital voice modes are acceptable on the frequencies that we also use for FM simplex contacts. So 145.200 up to 145.600. If you do QSY, be very careful, because particularly if you are transmitting from the top of a mountain, for example, if you're transmitting in C4FM, DMR, D-Star, whatever, on one of those frequencies, then you might inadvertently be interfering with an FM contact that's going on the same frequency many miles away. So you may do better on 2 meters to QSY somewhere into the all modes section. The C4FM simplex net that used to run along the south coast of England here, they always QSY'd to 144.575, and to the best of my knowledge, they never had a problem there. So that's a frequency you could use. If you go the other way, 144.625 and 144.650 I've heard used as well. But again, just be careful. Those frequencies can be used by Raynet. So if you're out at the weekend and you want to do 2 meters for your SOTA Flavours challenge, steer clear of whatever frequency Raynet uses in that range for the county that you're in. So, for example, here in Sussex, Raynet use 144.625. So if I was taking part in this in Sussex, when I QS-wide, I would either go down to 144.575 or up to 144.650. And that's all I can say. I don't know if I'll be going up to a mountain somewhere nearby, but I might very well be listening on the frequencies I've already mentioned from home and doing a bit of chasing from the shack. But if you've never done digital voice simplex, try it. You might be surprised just how far you can get out compared to FM. So give it a go.
Yeah. And the summarising the other thing is listen before you transmit. Certainly my C4 FM in the car shows different coloured lights. If it's an analog signal, it shows 2 green. If it's a digital signal, it shows blue and green on receive. So, I can look at that, but look at your S meter as well. Because if you can't, you might not be able to hear the other station. But if the S meter is showing a signal there, check first would be what I'd suggest. Leslie.
Oh, and one more thing, Martin. You mentioning that's brought back to my mind. Some handhelds have a feature on them where it will flip between C4 FM and ordinary FM depending on what it thinks you're doing or the last signal that you received. So check, be very careful, and I'll hold my hand up here. At one time or another, I have called CQ using C4 FM on 145,500, which is a big no-no. I have also called CQ using standard FM on 144.6125 because the radio flipped it over inadvertently and I didn't spot it. So if your radio is capable of automatically selecting the mode, check again that you are transmitting in what you think you are transmitting in before you call CQ.
Yeah, correct. Now, Leslie, you've heard a lot about this mode. I know you're an HF man. I know you don't like digital voice, but what do you think?
It is interesting. Yeah, you're right. I'm really a curmudgeon like this. I like playing with HF, that type of thing, the long wires slung out and all that. So, but I do find it interesting, especially what Edmund's been saying about the band plan requirements and all the rest of it. I think it would be a really good idea to get talks to the local club because I know people are picking up on these particular modes and I do know it's become very popular at the moment. But it is outside my sphere of knowledge and I've got to admit that.
Right. Yeah, it's always one of those things that there's lots of things we play with and we can't be experts in all of them, mate, which is one of the big pluses of our hobby. If we all did the same thing, it would be very boring. So, yeah, I don't see a problem with that. Okay, last news story, and unfortunately, I'm going to have a word with young Ruth, because Ruth was...
What has she done?
Well, she was doing something interesting and she didn't tell us. And, Ruth, we're interested in what you do. It's not just what other people do, it's what everybody does in the hobby. Ruth was out on the 22nd of February. That's Ruth Willett, KM4LAO, and she was out demonstrating satellite communications to a number of young ladies at a SEM club. I think this is really good. Dan, I thank you for finding Ruth for us, but you go first on this one.
Oh, okay. Well, I think this is a great story, obviously, and I think it brings up that we should try to feel a little bit obligated to pass on our knowledge to the younger generation. This is a particular case in point, and in fact, in this case, it's almost more than a hobby, right? They're encouraging girls to become educated about technology and maybe pursue careers in engineering or science in the future. And that's to me, that's one of the things about ham radio. No, we can get on and work the X and all that, but it is encouraging to the young people to, how should I say this? I'm not making much sense here. But if we encourage young people to take up ham radio, that will be a spur to them to take up science and technology careers in the future. That's the key there.
Yeah. I think the thing is, the more you learn, the things you learn in amateur radio that actually have relevance in lots of other engineering type environments, and you're able to talk to people. I mean, I talked to a guy who's a musician. I'm not musically talented. In fact, I was the kid who wasn't allowed to play the triangle at school. But when I talk to him about it, I understand the technologies of the guitar and what he's doing. I couldn't do it to save my life, but I understand, so and that's all about, when you think about it, it's making the string resonate, and by changing the length, you change the note, and all those sort of things are exactly the same as what we do. So it gives you an understanding and the magnetic pickups and that sort of thing. It's all technology, and amateur radio is good. Leslie, do you want to go next on this one?
Hats off to Ruth. I did have a look at the website. It's called the STEM Club of America. And there's the picture of Ruth showing youngsters how to work through satellites. Well done, Ruth. That's the way to go.
I agree with you. Edmund, have the last word on this one.
Well done, Ruth.
Is that all?
I can't think of anything else to say.
No. Well, in fairness, Ruth, we are gobsmacked that you did this, and we appreciate it. And I know you're very passionate about the hobby, because when I get to talk to you, I get that from you. And
you could just see it in the pictures, Martin. It just, it's just passing over that enthusiasm. That's what she's doing, and good luck to her. It's great.
Yeah, we appreciate it. So let us know in the future, Ruth. We are interested. Okay, well, that concludes our news stories, and I think we've had some interesting ones tonight. Right, I'm going to ask you what you've been up to. Go on, Leslie, you go first.
Right, I've been doing a couple of things. First of all, I've been trying some little projects for the club, and I've sort of changed the projects apart from we did a whole ream of pixies and stuff like that, and I've got another little project which I'm trying out. It's called a 49er, which is a little CW transceiver, and I'm putting that together. It's sort of on the bench at the moment. Just seeing how it is as a project. Can it be built easily? How the components go together? So that's the first little thing I've been working on. The other thing, which is why I wasn't at the rally the other day, is I've been going to a place in London to brush up on my skill set for technology-wise. So I've been doing one on cloud computing. I did one on Train the Tutor, and I've got another one coming up on Windows 10 to make sure I'm up to date with the latest thinking on that. So that's why I haven't been around recently. I'm just been making sure my skill set is up to date.
Yeah. And I know I give you a hard time, Leslie.
I know you do.
But it's only because we care, and our listeners do want to see you. So when you get yourself sorted, come and join us at rallies, mate. They do want to see you. All right. Dan, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I'm still beating on the updated version of the extra class study guide. That actually is all going pretty well. Pretty happy about that. I've also been teaching a general class course, and I've got 6 students that are slogging through with me, and hopefully by the end we'll have 6 new general class licensees here.
Well, it's always good when you get new ones, Dan. It's always good. And as you say, rewriting the books is something you probably have to do every 4 years, isn't it?
Yeah, every 4 years.
Yeah. Well, at least when the ARRL changed the syllabus, it gives you an opportunity to sell more books.
Well, here's the funny thing about this. It's not even the ARRL that changes it, right? So there's a group here called the National Council of Volunteer Examiner Coordinators, of which the ARRL is only a part of. And so it's not really even the ARRL participates, but it's not their responsibility to update the question pools. So it's kind of an interesting way it's done here.
Yeah. Well, I've done my 3 Dan, so I'm lucky for a while. Hi. Yeah. Okay, Edmund, what have you been up to?
Well, I live 4 miles line of sight west from the seaside town of Worthing here in West Sussex. And in the last week or so, Ray, Golf 4 November Sierra Juliet, who lives right slap bang in the middle of Worthing, has put a 10-metre beacon on the air. Call sign is Golf Bravo 3 November Sierra Juliet. Frequency is 28.252 megahertz. Currently on air from 6 in the morning till midnight, so off air overnight. But I believe Ray plans to switch it to 24-hour operation quite soon. And it's low power, 2.5 watts. 2.5 watts only. Going into a 5/8 vertical antenna, I believe. And I managed to receive it and managed to get the first reception report into him via email from anywhere. So that was quite nice. It has been heard on Beachy Head via ground wave using a world band radio receiver rather than an amateur kit. But I know somebody else who lives about 15 miles down the coast in the opposite direction who can't hear it at all. So few reception reports have gone into Ray via ground wave, but I'm looking forward to the summer months when the sporadic E season kicks in. So I hope his beacon will get heard widely across continental Europe. So I've been listening to that. The other thing, which was a really nice surprise that came out of the blue just before Valentine's Day, actually, was France, or full licensees in France, gained access to the 60-metre band, 5 megahertz. So they have got the WRC15 allocation, so they're limited to 15 watts. And I have worked, I think, about half a dozen stations, all of them in upper sideband, on the day after, or a couple of days after. They've only got the WRC15 allocation. We in the UK haven't got that, but the frequencies involved partially coincide with the bandlets that we do have in the UK. So if you want to work France or several other European countries, for that matter, 5354 and 5363 are the 2 common frequencies between the UK band plan and the WRC15 band plan. And of those 2 frequencies, every QSR I've had with France has been on 5363. So that's where they seem to hang out a little bit. So I'm really pleased this has happened, because from reading internet forums and watching YouTube videos, there is definitely this feeling held amongst French amateurs by a significant minority of them that France is the poor relation relative to Europe or elsewhere in Europe. So if England, if Germany, if the Netherlands have a banquet today, then France, if they're lucky, might get a few crumbs off the table 2 or 3 days later. That's a view I've seen and heard expressed many times, including about the 60-metre band. And it seemed to come out of nowhere as well. I know that towards the end of 2019 there was something official published somewhere, which made me think that perhaps they might get 60 metres in the next couple of years. But all of a sudden, on the 13th of February, woke up that morning in the Journal Officiel, the official journal. It was published just like that, blink of an eye. You've got 60 metres now, off you go. So it came out of a clear blue sky for me anyway. So I've put some extra wires on the end of my 40-metre dipole to trick it into thinking it's a 60-metre dipole, and that works very well. And the fact that everybody, if they're doing it legally, of course, is limited in power, it's a great leveller, because if you're sticking 15 watts into your wire in the UK and you can hear somebody 5 and 9 in France, then chances are they'll hear you 5 and 9 as well. It's not like on, say, 20 metres where you could be running QRP into a wire and the person you're talking to who's 5 and 9 plus 60 is using a 1 kilowatt linear amplifier and a stacked 3-element beam on a 30-metre high tower or something ridiculous like that. So really, really pleased for France. The next thing they're trying to get hold of is the 4-metre band, 70 megs. And I'm crossing my fingers for them that they'll get that as well. So yes, Martin, that's a very long-winded way of saying I've been listening to CW on 10 metres and practising my French on 60 metres.
Well, you've been busy. You didn't mention you went to the rally with me the other day, but
Oh yes, and I went to a rally with you the other day.
You did. And I think you enjoyed yourself. So,
always.
Yeah. Okay. I feel a little bit lost because you guys have been up to a lot, and I don't think I've done a tremendous amount. First off, I really ought to thank Trevor M5, aka, for sending me the information about our roof. So thank you, Trevor. I did miss it in the news information. Thanks for reminders of that. We're most appreciative, and I'll have 8 words with young Ruth for not telling me. Hi. What else have been up to? Well, I was at the Bradhurst Rally at the weekend. Bradhurst stands for Bradhurst Receiving and Transmitting Society. The BRATS actually stands for that. And good rally. We thoroughly enjoyed it. I was there with Mrs. B and Martin Rothwell. You'll probably hear extracts from that along with another feature at the end. That's what I'm planning to do with Colin. Edmund, I need to tell you, I saw Kev Richardson and I had quite a hard time stopping him from telling me because everything he wanted to tell me, because I said to him, you can give me an overview, but Edmund is going to do a feature-length interview with you and Lauren at Hamzilla. So he's kind of half mentioned it, but he's still expecting you to do the interview with him. So, yeah, don't feel I jumped you. We tried to steer him into talking about other things as well. So, but that was interesting. And spent a fair amount of time on GB3MH, the repeater in East Sussex, I think it is, or it's just into Sussex, isn't it? It's down
Turners Hill.
Turners Hill, is it? I thought it was East Grinstead, but it's down that way, and
It's in North Sussex, and if you get a chance to look at their website, I think is it the Ashdown Forest Group run it? It is a superb repeater in a superb location, only about 5 watts output, and their antenna is disguised as a flagpole on top of the church where it lives.
Yeah. So it does work extremely well. I did try working you via RF, and you came back in on Echolink because you were out and about and you didn't have a handy-talkie with you that would reach the site. But I did work you through it. I was stuck in the bottom end of Surrey at a railway station, and I was working through the repeater. I managed to work people either side of where you live, Edmund, so I should be able to get down to that part of the world. And I've also operated mobile running up the A22 when I'm coming home. So I've been quite active on FM repeaters and FM simplex, done quite a bit of FM simplex as well. So all in all, not a tremendous amount for me, but I have been to 2 rallies in the last month and produced 2 reports, so hopefully you'll forgive me for it. Right, I'd like to thank the guys for turning up today. I'd like to thank Mr. Leslie Butterfield G0CIB.
Thanks, Martin. It's been a blast.
Yeah, great to have you, mate. No problems at all. Mr. Edmund Spicer, M0MMG.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Martin. 7-3.
Yeah, 73, mate. And we got another rally in about a month's time, so you'll be with me, I know.
Oh, the mighty Hamzilla
Oh, yes.
in Dover, or near Dover. Really, really looking forward to that one, and really looking forward to chatting to Kevin, because G0PEK, because him and Lauren, his daughter, they are planning as we speak something pretty extraordinary for the summer of 2020, and I'm absolutely rooting for them and full of admiration, really, because there is no way I could even come close to doing the things that they do. So hopefully we'll catch up with them at Hamzilla, and I've got quite a lot of questions I want to ask both of them. So hopefully that will make a nice little feature for the podcast.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. As I say, Kevin's sort of working on his project now. He mentions it in the feature, so I'm going to let people listen to the feature to find out what it is. But he's only given you a taster. He's going to do, because they're still planning, but they want to talk to Edmund more about exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it. It's in about a month's time. And so that's, and the last person I'd like to thank today is Mr. Dan Romanchik, KB6NU. Thanks for joining us, Dan.
Oh, my pleasure as always. Another great episode.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoy all of them. And talking to people at rallies, they always seem to think we have too much fun, which is true.
How can you have too much fun? That's the whole idea of ham radio.
Of course it is. Yeah, you guys are always having fun. Well, yeah. That's what it's all about. If the hobby's not fun, don't do it. So, yeah. Unfortunately, Matthew didn't make it tonight, neither did Ruth, but they'll be back with us on a future podcast. I'd like to say 73 to you all, and don't forget, this is not the end of the podcast, just the end of this section. 73.
7.
Cheerio.
7-3.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.ICQPodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.ICQPodcast.com.
Now it's time to have a look at the news in brief from me, Colin M6BOY. Start with news here, but unfortunate news. The 5 MHz Beacon has closed in the UK. It's Beacon GB3 Whiskey Echo Sierra. It's located at Westmoreland, and its location ID is IO84QM. It was on 5.29 megahertz. As it was, it's actually going to aim to be closed down on the 11th of March. Only a couple of weeks left to go. This is when its notice of variation expires. The beacon entered service end of October 2004, and at the time was one of a chain of 3 5 MHz propagation research beacons, the others being GB3 RAL in Oxfordshire and GB3 ORK in the Orkney Islands. As of now, the only remaining beacon of those 3 is the one in Orkney. So, as I say, just news out on the closure of that beacon in the UK. The following International Shortwave League Club callsigns will be used throughout the month of March 2020. GX4BJC will be operated from Great Sutton in Cheshire. GX4BJC Portable will be operated, as I say, on request. MX1 SWL will be operated from Eastbourne in Sussex, and as I say, there's also a portable variation of that as well. QSLs will be handled by the QSL manager and not the individual operator. So we'll post, obviously, details of this on the ICQ podcast website for you. So say they're there for you if you wish to work those stations. News now from Canada in relation to distracted driving regulations, and in light of a recent decision in Ontario, the Ministry of Transport is to make permanent the exemption of handheld two-way radios for commercial drivers and amateur radio operators. They've reviewed regulations in Canada, and to the best of knowledge, the exemptions in all other provinces and territories are permanent. One exception is Nunavut, I think it's pronounced, where there is apparently no exception. Regulations will come into force by the provincial and territory governments and can vary considerably upon the province and territory. So again, it looks like it's one of those things, guys, is to check your local area and the local regulations and rules in your area to make sure you don't fall foul of these things. We're going to pop a link, say, to the information given by the Radio Club of Canada, as I say, in relation to their advice on this here, so you can gen up and make sure you're all fine going forward from there. So now we head over to our features episode, double features episode for you. We've got, as I say, a report from the BRATS Rally. But first, we have Frank, KM for Foxtrot Mike Hotel, who it talks about the launching of the Illinois Young Ham Radio Club. As always, guys, hope you enjoy.
And now, what you've all been waiting for, this episode's feature from the ICQ podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Frank, K4FMH, Fox Mike Hotel, with another feature interview for the ICQ podcast. Today, my guest did something that happens almost weekly, I suspect, around the world. He started an amateur radio club. That's not unusual. What is unusual is that my guest today is 15 years old, and the club he started is the Young Amateur Radio Club. His name is Graham Brody. His call sign is KD9NTQ. And as my guest this evening is Graham Brody. Graham, welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Frank. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to get on the show.
Listen, I read your bio on QRZ, and there was a little news story on the front page of QRZ about your club. You started the Illinois Young Ham Club at ILYH.org, and I hope some of our listeners will check that website out as you start to build it and that sort of thing. By looking at it, you've got 28 members, 7 of whom are unlicensed. You've got some modern modes of technology. You've got a TGIF talk group and a Discord server channel, and so you've got some things pulled together. How was it that you ran across amateur radio?
Yeah, so one day I was on YouTube. I came across a video about ham radio. I didn't know too much about it at first. I had heard about it a couple of years ago. Didn't really do anything with it. And I've always been interested in technology and all different sorts of hobbies. And I started watching some more videos about it. And then I found out you can get licensed for the hobby. And I ended up getting my technician after that. And then it spiraled down to my general September 24th, 2019. And I actually just passed my extra February 10th, 2020. Still waiting for that to get updated. But yeah, so now I'm totally hooked on the hobby.
Congratulations, you're ahead of me. That's something on my to-do list, is stop having fun and study for my extra. So you found out about amateur radio on YouTube. That's a very modern way of doing it. It was not like usually a elderly gentleman that you run into, or you see a note at the library or that sort of thing. So you got interested there. How did you get connected to a VEC team to take your test or study for your test?
Yeah, so I started looking up ham radio in my area, and I found the North Shore Radio Club, which is my local club. Big thanks to them for helping me do everything I've done so far with the hobby. But I checked the ARRL site for local testings, and I actually use hamstudy.org, which I think a lot of people use when they first get into the hobby. And, I didn't fully understand all the concepts at first. So, I reached out to some of the club members and asked them for help. And then I was able to take my technician from there. And then I did a lot of repeater operating, talked on simplex a lot. And then I started to get into HF, and I thought it was really cool to talk to people all around the world, and then that's what led me to get my general.
So you're located in Illinois. Deerfield, Illinois is your FCC ULS license database address, and that's just northwest of Evanston, as I see on the map.
Yeah, it's just northwest of there. And I'm a sophomore at Deerfield High School.
Now, the club, the North Shore Club, I looked at their website before our recording, and they seem to have a very impressive club. They have a lot of activities. My local club, our motto is "We do stuff." #We do stuff. And I think most clubs who are active means that you've got at least some number of members who like the hobby and sort of show that. So did you have any particular person or two in the North Shore Club that elmered you into the hobby?
Yeah, definitely. Carrie Willis, KD9ITO, and Michael Seaman, AA6DY. Also, Bert KR9T, Don KK9H have all really helped me get in the hobby, helped me with my club. I'd like to thank them a lot for helping me. And yeah, our clubs are really fun. We just launched what's called our Build Club the other day. In terms of reaching out to youth, I think they have tried that in the past. I don't know how successful it has been, so I think I'm going to be working with them to try to reach out to young people. They've been writing some stuff about me in their monthly article that they publish that gets emailed to all the members. And so in terms of reaching out to youth, we're still working on that, but that's a work in progress.
Do you have any friends in high school, kind of roughly around your age, who are hams?
Yeah, not particularly at my high school, which I found to be very interesting. Some a little bit farther away in Chicago, I found, and I think I really hope there was someone at my high school who was into radio, because I know a number of years ago there was many people my age were into the hobby, and you could find many peers, but not too much today.
Talk to our listeners a little bit about that. There's this image that ham radio, do they still do that? And of course the answer is yes. We have over 750,000 licensed hams, more than we've ever had today. Talk to us kind of from a non-ham, that is before you got into amateur radio. What do some of your peers think about ham radio?
Well, you just don't think people are, they've never really heard about it. Most people, when I talk about ham radio, they think I'm talking about CB radio, and they think I'm talking to truckers. And, I kind of have to explain to them. But, I think there's a lot of people out there my age who are interested in electronics and various hobbies that could use ham radio, and I think they'd really enjoy it. I work with my makerspace in my high school a lot. And I see kids in there 3D printing all the time, and I think that's a good target to kind of aim ham radio at, because I think they could they definitely take an interest in it.
Graham, as you already know, and clearly from the technology that your amateur radio club that you started is using, that a lot of the technology, some parts of it are based on RF, whether that's Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or that sort of thing. And so it's a short step, and it's not a leap at all to go from an interest in that to involving licensed RF in amateur radio. So do some of your friends like drones and computers and things of that nature?
Yeah, definitely. I have a lot of friends who are interested in stuff like that. I think ham radio can be applied. You don't even have to specifically use ham radio. Once you start learning about ham radio, you would just learn about radio in general and can apply that to many other hobbies, like drone racing, for example. There's a lot of things you can do with that. Robotics. There's so many different things. APRS. And I think there's just so much you can do with the hobby.
Well, as you know, Part 15 allows you to do unlicensed transmitting and communication, usually over short distances and things like that. That's an area of the makerspace. I think the American Radio Relay League and some other amateur radio groups certainly recognize that the maker culture and the maker space is of interest. It's a short jump from that to what we generically call hacking, whether it's good guys, white hat hacking, or perhaps even black hat, bad guys hacking. So do your friends, a lot of them like computers?
Yeah, they definitely like computers, and they just like technology in general. A lot of my friends who I game with are definitely into building PCs, looking at the various parts. I know some people into Arduinos, Raspberry Pis, stuff like that.
So you mentioned you're a gamer, is that correct?
I am, yes, big gamer.
And do you see a connection between what gets your juices going in gaming and what amateur radio operators get into with contesting?
Yeah, 100%. I think, well, for me, what get my juices going on amateur radio is DX stations. I love DXing. When I hear a far off station, I get so excited. Also, when I get to contact them, that makes me even more excited. And I think I don't do too much contesting myself, but it's kind of finding your own part of the hobby you like, whether that be satellites, DXing, contesting, CW. But for me, it's DXing.
Okay. Think about girls who are your age and maybe your friends. Does the interest in technology become gendered among them? That is it mostly guys who are into that, or do you have girls into it as well?
We have, I'm just basing it off our makerspace here. I think we have probably around 50-50. I definitely think there are a lot of males and females involved in this, and I think we can ham radio is kind of marketed towards for both genders. So
in your makerspace, it's about, you said it's about 50-50. That's incredible and outstanding. You've got a great engineering program nearby in Evanston at Northwestern, as well as elsewhere in the greater Chicago area. And that's one of the things that I hope is sort of taking root. There are some very famous women who are hams. And so part of our understanding, as I call us, the old geezers like myself in my late 60s, trying to understand how we present, how we communicate amateur radio. And nothing is for everyone, no matter what hobby or pastime. So you're helping us understand that a bit better. Now let's shift to some adults. What did your parents think of your interest in this?
Yeah, I didn't really know anyone, first of all, into ham radio when I first started. I asked my dad about it. He, I think, heard of it once before, but not much besides just hearing about it. He'll probably get his technician license soon. But yeah, they didn't hear about it too much. Until I found my club, I didn't really know anyone who knew about it.
But you've got a shack and you do at least a little bit of DXing, so your parents must be fairly supportive.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a struggle to let me get them put a wire up outside and fed up outside, but I finally let me do it, and it's been a lot of fun. I run a Yaesu 450D with an end fed outside. It's a 40, 20, 15, 10 meter. However, I only operate on 40 and 20 meters. Mostly phone, do a little bit of FT8. Starting to get into CW. I think that's a really cool part of the hobby. I made a couple contacts on there so far. And I'm active on DMR and my local repeaters.
Very good. Many people find DMR confusing. What about writing your code plug? Did someone have one you could download, or did you work through that?
Yeah, I kind of worked through that myself. I'm on a little pretty unknown radio, so I mean, not many people had code plugs for it. But, I think digital modes might be the future of the hobby. I think that things like Echolink, DMR will definitely, I think those are good things to market towards the younger generation. They're kind of a little bit easier to get started with, and instead of putting up like a whole antenna outside, and you have that ability to talk to anyone else in the world, no matter where they are.
One of the things about FT8, it sort of just exploded after Nobel laureate Joe Taylor's work, and what a gift to us in his retirement there as a professor of physics in doing the work into these weak signal modes. FT8's taken off, and I'm one of them, thinks that one of the reasons that it's taken off is that we're at the low point in the sunspot cycle. So those of us, you and I, and thousands of others who like to talk to people like we're talking now, it's a little more challenging because of the lack of sunspot. Although that, depending on the day, it's like fishing. Sometimes they're biting, sometimes they're not. But FT8's gotten very popular. From a computer and gamer point of view, talk to me a little bit about FT8 and your sense. Some people say, oh, it's boring. Anything can be boring if you don't get it, and anything can be exciting if you do. Talk to us about how you feel about FT8 and digital modes in general on HF.
I think FT8 is a fun mode. Sometimes I do get a little bit bored while operating FT8s, but I think ham radio is always made, for voice communication and CW. So I think trying to not trying to put a phone over the side and kind of trying to keep that alive as well, I think that's also a good thing. For right now, the sunspot cycle is not too great. The digital modes are going to be what we're going to have to use for now. But I think we should really keep phone alive, and I think in CW.
Like you, I also have a Yaesu FT450D. I happen to have mine in a Gator case, one of my portable contesting stations. Talk to us about the FT450D. What about the 450D you like?
I like that it has... it's not fully menu driven. It's got all the settings on the outside. You can change your filters from buttons on the outside. I've seen a lot of these more portable and mobile rigs like the 891, and they're very menu driven, which kind of swayed me away from getting those. But there's also downsides. It's a little bit larger, so if you want to do POTA or SOTA, it's a little bit harder to take with you. In terms of other radios, I have a Kenwood TMV71A, which is in my room that I use for simplex and repeaters. That radio is really nice. I operate on that every day. I really like that one.
You and I must have the same list of Santa Claus, because I too have an FT891 and I have a V71A. So we have very similar taste in radios. And I would agree with you. The V71A I have built into a resin ammo can, and I use that for setting up for emergency, primarily public service modes. And it's an easy to program. The audio is what Kenwood is known for. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles that, say, a Yaesu Fusion radio. It's a vanilla analog. Echolink ready, however. And I like the V71A, and anybody can pick it up, their license and their ham, and use it. I like the DSP on the FT450D. Have you used that much to sort of deal with interference and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I definitely use that a lot. Being near Chicago and the suburbs, there's a lot of RF around here, RF interference, so I use that pretty often. In terms of Go boxes or Go kits, yeah, that's something I'm also interested in building with my Kenwood. Did you say you had yours in an ammo can?
Yes, I do.
Okay, yeah, I've seen some in a Pelican case as well, which are nice. nice. And those are really cool.
Let's talk a little bit about how did you come to the idea of doing a ham club for young people, the Illinois Ham Radio Club? You're involved in a large North Shore club. I just glanced, and they published their list of members. They've got well over 50 to 75 members, it seems like. So you were involved in a club that kind of embraced you. You named off 4 or 5 Elmers, and they're active. How was it you came across doing a club for young ham?
I didn't really find anyone my age when I started, so I thought it was really important to get people my age in the hobby, because maybe 20, 30 years we might not have as many younger operators. And so I kind of started just building a website at first. Then I went on Discord, which is like a chat room that you can chat via text or voice, which is really popular among gamers as well, which I think we can also market it towards. And from there, I just kept telling people. I made a post on Keyword Z, which has gotten pretty popular in the last couple of days. And my club also is doing some stuff to help me out. Like we're trying to get a radio installed in our local makerspace that we're going to do some demos at, which should draw a few people.
Well, yeah, you can find ham radio in a lot of unexpected places. I took my truck to a dealer, and in the shop, I had a friend there. And so you wouldn't generally think of a ham radio being on top of the chest of wrenches and tools that your auto mechanic is using, but in fact, that's the case. So he has a 2-meter radio that he kind of monitors a repeater with, and when he's swapping wrenches and doing that sort of thing, he's talking to people. So if you look around, you can find amateur radio almost anywhere. But what I'm hearing is that there's one of the things that we older folk try as we may sometimes, we may not appreciate the fact that we're trying to get young people to be effectively a small minority in a sea of us gray hair. And while we try to treat younger folk nicely, there's just something about having other people who are about your age. That's what I'm hearing, Graham, and that seems to be the impetus for creating the Illinois Young Ham Club. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's spot on. I think some people my age right now kind of, and they may see ham radio and see that maybe it's some more older people to it and be kind of nervous or not want to approach these people. And I think that's why having the youth like me and some other people will just help people be able to reach out to us maybe instead of someone else they're not comfortable with. And our club is a great place to ask questions, get advice on equipment and other stuff like that.
Well, it sounds like the North Shore Club is doing a great job with facilitating that. And here's just the thought. If when you were looking at the ARL Find a Club and Test Location database, if there was a part of that database that said, if you're a young person and you don't have a young person's ham club in your area, contact us. We'll help you start one. Would that be an inducement to someone like yourself if you had run into that when you were looking for a club?
Yeah, I would for sure take that offer up if I didn't find a youth club near me. I love bringing other people into my hobbies, telling them about it, trying to get them into the same hobbies I'm in. So I think that would be a really interesting idea.
It could be that clubs like the North Shore Club would be called on to help people like you, and they probably did, at least indirectly, by facilitating your meeting at a public library or some other place. And I want to pick your brain a little bit about if ham clubs like the North Shore Club or like my club or like any club that's dominated by middle-aged or older people, what message and how could they go about reaching out to the makerspace community? What would be the best way for them to do that and have that message heard and bring the amateur radio hobby to people in the makerspace as well as the gaming space? Educate us a little bit about how we can make that communication bridge viable.
I think as far as the makerspace community, it's really about trying to find what that particular person is interested in the makerspace and kind of applying it. Let's say you're into 3D printers. There's a lot of 3D printing stuff you can do that relates to ham radio. Maybe you're into laser cutting or maybe you're into electronics. They can all come back somehow to ham radio. And I think actually doing demos and showing people the radios instead of just talking about it is another great way as well. And when I talk about it with people, sometimes they're like, okay, cool, that sounds like technology from the 60s. But, when I show them, they get a little bit more intrigued. They're like, oh, wow, you can talk to someone 2,000-3,000 miles away. It's really cool.
You've made some good points, and here's one that I'm hearing out of that. Perhaps members of local clubs, that they might take an advantage to have a speakers academy, if you will, where people have kind of polished up their elevator speech and their elevator demo, so to speak. That is, they're not going to take all day to do it, but in a short demo, kind of a dog and pony show where they've got a radio or they've got some of that technology, and they could perhaps get permission from someone who runs a makerspace to give a short program, 15 to 20 minutes on that. That wouldn't be too intrusive, it doesn't sound like, but you tell me, is that kind of thing, if ham groups tried to do that, do you think that might be well received?
Yeah, I think that could be good. I think, doing the short demos definitely get people involved. I mean, I found ham radio from YouTube, and I think maybe also trying to go on that platform or social media will also get people interested in radio.
You're a gamer. How could ham radio clubs or the ARRL reach gamers? Now, buying ads in gaming magazines or ads on gaming websites, those are just two that come to mind. But you educate our listeners, how can hams and ham radio in general reach the gaming audience?
I think we can reach the gaming audience by showing them the thrill you can get out of ham radio. You get this sort of thrill when you're gaming. I think is like unlike other hobbies. I think what platform we could do it on, that's still to be found. Ads is definitely a way to do it.
Ads in gaming magazines?
Yeah, ads in gaming magazines. I also think ads in makers magazines also. But, I think that's still kind of to be found with the gamers. I think we're kind of more found the spot where we can reach out to the makers a little bit more than the gamers at this point.
Sure. Okay, that's great insight. Very good insight. Graham, let's look at the future that you see for yourself. Do you have you formed career plans, or is that something that's kind of to be found, to use your term?
Yeah, I'm probably going to end up maybe doing something in electrical engineering, is what I've looked at. In terms of future of the Illinois Young Ham Club, we're going to be hopefully getting a club call sign soon here. We'll be starting a net as well with our local club repeater, and just trying to use word of mouth and get the word around the community. And, the Illinois Young Ham Club is not just for people in Illinois, it's for people all over the world. And we'd love to have people from anywhere to come and join.
One of the things you might consider doing, if you can put together the equipment, and it's not that much, is to get an echo link into your repeater so people can check in. Some of the clubs who have done that, even though it is viewed in ham radio as kind of lower technology versus DMR, Fusion, D-Star, and things like that, it does work, and it can be very effective, kind of a lowest common denominator. So continue to promote that. Of course, you're using a Discord server, which is widely available as well. So I hope that through having you as my guest on a feature for the ICQ podcast, it can help get the word out there that the Illinois Young Ham Club is worldwide. It's not just for those in Illinois, and anyone can join, and that you are building. And I think by continuing to promote the message that young hams can be an effective part of a larger group, just as you are in the North Shore group. But there's nothing stopping you from creating your own groups. And I, for one, will tug the cape of my local Superman, that is my division director, who is a member of the board of directors for the American Radio Relay League. This kind of thing might be something that the ARRL should promote, helping young hams form their own clubs, not to keep them out of other clubs whatsoever, but you can have partnership, just as though we promote college clubs. We have college club contests. I think it's collegiate amateur radio roundup. Things that the league can do, promote what people like yourselves have taken a leadership role in doing, that can get the word out. And I'm also just delighted that at least in your makerspace, it's about 50-50 gender-wise. And so I hope you're able to recruit along the same lines into your amateur radio club. Graham, you mentioned DXing is very exciting to you. What do you see yourself doing if you get a degree in electrical engineering? What sort of career, what will you get your jollies on? Designing things, building things? So what might that be?
Yeah, I haven't put too much thought into that, but maybe in the realm of designing. Yeah, electrical engineering is probably what I'm going to go towards. Maybe computer science, one of those two fields probably.
Well, computer engineering is sort of the hybrid. Being a former college professor and being around it, I can tell you that the electronic hardware side and the software sides have kind of melded, and many programs that are computer science, if they have a strong electrical engineering department, they've often merged some of that because the computer engineering is sort of both of them. And so given the technology today, that might be something that you might be headed in. And down the road just a piece, while there's a great one at Northwestern, the one in Urbana is world class, and you've got some great people there if you want to stay in the state. So you've got a bright future ahead of you, because it's a wonderful world if you're interested in electronics today, and you clearly are. Is there anything else that you'd like for our listeners to know? Graham, at 15, you started your own ham club for young people. You're a member of a large adult-driven, if you will, ham club, the North Shore Club. You got your own shack. You got your parents interested in enough so your dad may get his tech license. You convinced them to put up one of these strange-looking wire antennas there on your property. Anything else you'd like our listeners to know about you?
Yeah, I really think anyone who's listening, who's part of a radio club, I really think if you're not doing anything, to reach out to young people, really try to give it a shot at least once. If you know any younger people, at least show them one time. It's worth a try. And if they don't get into it, they don't. But one person at a time can grow the movement and eventually get a lot of people into it.
Very good. One of the things that I've taken some leadership in is called the Plant the Seed Initiative, and the ARL has a $200 set ship of 10 books, including the handbook and the antenna handbook, and then 8 others, to get into public libraries. Some of the research shows that there's an incredible number of youth-oriented programs in public libraries. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time out. You're in school. Heck, you may even have a test. I don't want to keep you too long. I do want to thank you, and I want to congratulate you for what you're doing. I used to have a ironclad rule that my PhD students, I may tell them something that they wanted to work on was hard. I never told an undergraduate anything was hard. And I would go doubly for high school students. Ever tell a young person that anything's hard, because you just never know what a young person can do. And you've done something that a lot of adults that has not done, and that is create a club that's getting some national and international attention. And I'm just glad the ICQ podcast can help you do that. So I want to say 7-3 to you, Graham, KD9NTQ. Graham is good on QRZ. Give him a look and congratulate him on creating the Illinois Young Ham Club. 7-3, Graham.
Yep, 73, Frank. Thanks for having me on this show. I really appreciate it. As Frank said, you can reach me at QRZ or at ILYH.org. And I also encourage any young people listening right now, go look up ham radio and try to give it a shot.
Presenter postscript. We've just heard from Graham, KD9NTQ, and I want to briefly summarize some of the messages that we heard from him. It's great to engage young people into adult-driven ham clubs, but also encourage, sponsor, and partner with youth-created and driven clubs, too. The North Shore Amateur Radio Club in Deerfield, Illinois is a great role model for this. There are rich targets for education and exposure of young people to amateur radio, and Graham says these include maker spaces and gamer groups. Perhaps we should investigate our local communities for the presence of these two groups, especially maker spaces, which tend to advertise their relatively new presence there. There may be a rich market for both boys and girls if Graham's experience is indicative of those communities. Perhaps the ARL, RSGB, and other national societies should especially identify youth-driven clubs in their constituents. So when you search for a club, there might be a tag for youth-oriented or driven club. In addition, they should consider an effort to seek crowdsourced inquiries from young people, that is, those who go to websites to find clubs and where they are, and directly help those inquirers start their own youth clubs, and perhaps match them with affiliated adult-driven clubs in the area for partnership. Should national societies like the American Radio Relay League and the Royal Society of Great Britain buy ads, or perhaps engage in advert swap in gaming magazines and online websites? Well, these could identify what Graham said was a spot-on match with radio sport contesting and amateur radio. It's worth thinking about. And finally, we should be engaging to young people at all times in the hobby, including their desire to affiliate with people their own age. We should recognize that the majority of ham clubs may be populated with members who are much older. Don't let your age show, and respect that young people can and do things that we old geezers often say is just too hard. Thanks for listening. Until next time, this is Frank, K4FMH, Fox Mike Hotel for the ICQ Podcast.
The ICQ Amateur Ham Radio Podcast, serving the amateur ham radio community fortnightly since 2008.
On Sunday the 23rd of February 2020, we decided, as the ICQ team, to go to the BRATS Rally. Now, BRATS stands for Bradhurst Receiving and Transmitting Society, and the rally is held in Rainham in Kent. Now, listen to what I said, Rainham, Kent, not Rainham, Essex. They're not far apart as the crow flies, but far enough to ruin your day if you went to the wrong place. You shouldn't have a problem, because if you follow the website, you'll be there. So, early Sunday morning, Mrs. B, Martin Rothwell, M0SGL, and myself, Martin, M1MRB, travelled to the Bradhurst Rally, and we arrived fairly early, managed to set up and get quite a few interviews with people, and we managed to get quite a few interviews with some of the special interest groups. So I hope this is entertaining for you. We're over at the Rainham Rally, and I've just found John from the UK 6 metre group. John's callsign G0CIB. John, a pleasure to meet up with you. And I believe you're the editor of the 6 metre group, aren't you?
I am. Good to meet you all too. So thanks very much for inviting me to chat. Yes, I'm the editor of the UK 6 metre group news. I think I've been doing the job for just under 2 years now. Thoroughly enjoying it. Really interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, I know I'm terrible with names. I'm struggling now. Your man came and spoke to us at the club, and very interesting. And 6 metres is one of my favourite bands as well. Although I ought to be a member of the 6 metre group, I'm not. So that's a failure on my part.
Yeah, well, it's even cheaper if you get a PDF version. I think it's about £8 a year. But more than that, the web page, the members part of the web page, contains quite a lot of extra information and live data and so on. It's really good. I mean, I would say that, wouldn't I? But it really is worth having a look at. So, you know, £8 if you want a PDF, or £10 if you want the hard copy.
So, with the sunspot cycles being terrible at the moment, how is it affecting the 6 metre ban?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, funnily enough, some people say it's the saviour, some people say it's the death knell of amateur radio, but FT8 has been amazing. We reckon it's probably almost 90% of all the contacts on 6 are currently FT8. It's probably similar for the HF bands, to be honest, as well. But yeah, so FT8 is doing really well. And we had a massive opening, which lasted a week or so before Christmas, where there were signals going right across the States, down Europe, down to Africa. And so 6 metres has been really open over the last, just before Christmas.
And there is a reason why they call it the Magic Band. So that was what you just told us. And it's an interesting band. For anybody new coming into the hobby, I know us older hams know this, but it's the lowest VHF band we have, which is almost HF, and it kind of has the characteristics of both, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's very much like an HF band with the magic part of a VHF band. So you get the tropo, you get the E's, you get the double hops, the triple hops. It's amazing. Going back to your bit about the talks, yes, there's David and Chris, I think, do talks. I do talks. I've done a couple of clubs recently. So if people get in contact with us, if you just look on uk6metergroup.org, and I'm editor at uk6metergroup.org, UKSMG, then just get in touch with us and we'll try and help your club out with talks. But they do go down quite well, and people are quite surprised when they learn about what the band can do.
Yeah. Well, you just mentioned Chris's name. I'm sure it was Chris that did it for us. Very, very interesting talk. And what you just said is very, very helpful for club secretaries that are desperately find speakers. And a way of promoting it is for people like ourselves to go out there and promote what we do. So good to hear you do that, John.
Oh, no, I think it's brilliant. And it's great to hear the response and get the questions from fellow hams, because there's still a great surprise about the band. I think what's happened in the past, before a lot of HF rigs had 6 metres included in it, it was more difficult for people to get on 6. It wasn't that common. People used to get a 6 metre rig, try it once, twice, especially on FM, didn't get a response, thought, oh, it's a bit of a dead band, I'm not going to bother. Where in actual fact, there's a heck of a lot going on. And as I say, from time to time, especially in the summer, but even in the winter time, we do get some really spectacular lifts, and it's an amazing band.
Yeah, so all in all, a great band. Great to catch up with you, John. Give me the 6 metre website so that people can obviously find them for finding more information about what you do.
It's www.uksmg.org.
Well, thank you very much, John. I know I hijacked you very quickly at the table here, but great to chat to you.
Thank you. Very good. Cheers. Take care.
Right, I'm with Kevin down here at the rally. And Kevin, you got some interesting things going on the stand here. Tell us about what you're up to at the moment.
Yeah, good afternoon. We're representing CARA, which is Kent Active Radio Amateurs, and we're actually fundraising for an expedition where we're going to be doing cycling and radio from Land's End up to Cape Wrath via John O'Groats, using radio all the way. So at the moment, it's all in the planning stage. Watch this space.
Right. So earlier last year, you did a trial run from Dover to Land's End, wasn't it? Which seemed great fun.
We did. We didn't know if it was going to work, and it was Lauren's 2E0 HLR's first attempt at bike camping. We started at Dover, ended up in Land's End. Didn't go according to plan. We had lots and lots of problems with battery problems and charging issues. Major problems with the weather. 300 miles of headwinds was a real tough one, but it gave us enough information to work out what we needed to do in order to make the next trip feasible.
Right, so 300 miles, it's about another 2.5 times that to get to Scotland, isn't it?
Yeah, but Cornwall is the hardest bit. It gets easier. It's very short, steep hills in Cornwall. As you move up country, the hills get easier, believe it or not. Even Scotland, the hills, they're longer, but then so are the downhills.
All right, that sounds great. Well, looking around, we'll talk more to you about your de-expedition, your bicycle de-expedition later in the year. So we'll see you in about a month's time. Here today, you and Lauren have also got some interesting little experiments going on. So what are you doing?
Yeah, well, as well as all the fundraising and all the CARA stuff, for the last 6 years now, we've been running interactive activities at the local radio rallies. Now, what we do there, we have a lot of little science-based activities. Not a lot of it is directly radio related, but our way of looking at things is if we can get youngsters sort of enthused with science, then the leap into radio science is less of a jump. So we've got all sorts of different things, from marble runs that work on hand crank generators to little hovercraft things all powered up, and other little things to do with radio as well. We've got little CW things, a little Morse telegraph that goes across the two tables, linear motors, stuff with magnets, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, and the kids seem to love it.
Yeah, sounds great. And at least we got some interaction. So do I go and grab your daughter for a few words?
I'm sure you can try and get a few words out of her.
All right. Come on, Lauren, tell us what you're up to.
Hello.
You've been demonstrating all these nice, interesting science bits, haven't you?
Yes, we've got a marble run out, and it's run on a hand crank generator, which runs at about 4 volts. So, yeah.
Yeah. So it's good, and we're going to catch up with you later in the year down at Hamzilla, where your dad says you and I and him are going to talk about your de-expedition on your bicycle ride up to Scotland.
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of resigned myself to doing that now. I want to, but I'm scared at the same time. But I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably get over the pain after a week or so.
Yeah. Well, let's say, I'm going to wish you every luck on that. Thanks for a few words, and we'll see you down at Hamzilla.
Yeah, we'll do. See you then.
From SXCW, the radio on the table today, and we are looking for members for the boot camp in Whittam in October this year. So if you'd like to come along and sign on, you're welcome for a good day of Morse code and loads of nice cakes and coffee.
Now, one thing you don't know about me, Andy, is there is a rule. I'm not allowed more than 2 coffees. The person who gives me the third becomes responsible for me for the rest of the day, Andy. Are you sure about loads of coffee?
Well, certainly keep you awake during the day. I'm sure you might... Nobody falls asleep at the SXCW boot camp. It's a full-packed day, and everybody comes back for more.
Right. Well, I know Matthew, one of our fellow presenters, actually came along to your boot camp, and I know he thoroughly enjoyed it. He was on last year's one. So, as I say, you guys do a great job over in Essex promoting CW.
It's just one aspect of a great hobby. There's so many different aspects. We specialise in Morse code. There's satellite communications, 2 meters, 77s, all these other kind of moon bounce. There's so many aspects of this great hobby. We're just one small part of it.
Yeah, and it's an interesting part because although Martin, who's with me today, and myself don't do Morse, or not very well anyway, I'll be honest with you, there are lots of people very, very interested because as people are coming into our hobby now and it's not a requirement, more people are interested, I believe.
It seems to have been rejuvenated, I think. People that come and join us are people who want to learn Morse code. And when there's a rally like this, or any rally anywhere where we're demonstrating the hobby, if you've got a loudspeaker sending out Morse code, you'd be surprised how many different people come along and show an interest. Either their parents or grandparents have used Morse code, they learnt it in the guides or the brownies, and you get a lot of response with Morse code.
Yeah, I agree with you. And okay, I said I don't do Morse, but I help out on Morse on HMS Belfast when we're there. And one of the biggest enjoyments for the children is to actually send their name in Morse. And you know, you can also see the mums and the dads itching, I want to have a go. And we try and encourage them to have a go. So it is great fun, as you say.
Yes, I operate on Belfast as well. And as you say, not only the children, but the grandparents are just itching to get on the key as well and demonstrate their skills. It's really, I really enjoy it on the Belfast.
Yeah, the only problem I have is if they're a bit too quick for me, which most adults are. But hey, we get by, so it's great fun. Now, if somebody wanted to find out more about Essex CW, where would they go to look for you?
Well, the internet, like most things, if you go on and dial in for Essex CW, you'll find the web page. There's no joining fee. It's free, and we promote Morse code in clubs in Essex, all around Essex. We've even done it in Kent and Suffolk. Rather a long way for us to go, really, but we'll go wherever. If anybody shows any interest in Morse code, we'll come along.
Yeah, that sounds great to me. That's great to me. Andy, you got other people around you. I interviewed Tony a fortnight ago at the rally over in Canvey Island. The other man, Dean. Sorry, I haven't got my glasses on, Dean. It began with a D and I was struggling to see your badge. Yeah, how long have you been a member of Essex CW?
I've been a member for about 6 years now. I took a break from CW. I passed my test originally back in 1984, then had about 30 years off. I met up with Andy, G0CIB at a Canvey rally about 5 or 6 years ago. Dug out my old key, had a go. Got very, very nervous, then ended up at his classes, brushing up on CW. Now I'm 99.9% a CW operator.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Now, I've got to say, Tony's looking very, very relaxed today. 2 weeks ago, first thing in the morning, he wasn't. But you're over in a different guise, Tony, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm over here with the SXCW guys today. A couple of weeks ago, obviously, we were in the middle of organising the Canvey Rally. So, yeah, completely different, nicely relaxed, just about to go and get a cup of coffee in a minute and, yeah, chilling out and enjoying the day.
Yeah, sounds good to me. And the gentleman sitting the other side, Alan, give us a quick couple of words. Why are you a member of Essex CW?
Well, I'm back in the hobby after 30 years. I rejoined last year. When I first learnt Morse years ago to pass the test, didn't like it. These days they teach it so differently, and it's great. It takes you into at the bottom of the cycle, as we are still now. The other day I got Canada on a very, very small garden, small aerial. It's just a fabulous mode, and it's more gentlemanly, I think. And the way they teach it now is so much easier than before, and it's infectious. So please come and join our club. And we're very much member driven, and it's just a marvellous hobby.
Well, that's great. And last words from Andy here. Thanks very much, guys. But Andy, any last words where they're going to find you?
Well, SXCW are obviously in the Essex area. The boot camp is in October. If anybody would like to come along, it's a fun day. Loads of nice cakes to eat, loads of nice coffee, and everybody has a great day. So please come along.
So thanks very much, guys. Well, as we come to pretty much the end of the rally, and I've just caught Chris Taylor from Moonraker. Been a good rally for you, I hope, Chris.
Yeah, it's been a good day. Lots of people visited us. Quite a few people we've not seen before, which is always good. So yeah, it's been very good.
Yeah, and you've got a nice display on show here. Lots of nice goodies, so I think everybody's enjoyed having a good look round.
Yeah, absolutely. Star of the show is the Anytone 578, because it's the radio with Bluetooth that everyone wants. And yeah, they'll be flying out, and lots of antennas as well. It's a really good day.
Yeah, and those Anytones are quite reasonable. I mean, I picked up an Anytone 588 for 4 metres, a second hand, but at a reasonable price. But I was actually really impressed with its build quality.
Yeah, they're commercial manufacturers. They manufacture for the DMR and PMR market, and so it spills over onto their amateur products. And the dual band DMR radio with Bluetooth is 350 quid. And if you compare that to the Bluetooth interface from any of the big three, then it's quite cheap. So yeah, it's good value for money package.
Yeah, and Bluetooth in the car is obviously ideal. Now, I spoke to Justin earlier. He tells me he's going to Dayton, but unfortunately you're not going to be there this year, Chris.
No, I'm not going there this year because just too much time away from home, and I've got a project on the go at home, and I can't leave my wife on a Todd. So I should be busy at home while Justin's busy at Dayton. But don't worry, I'll be back next year.
I'm sure they'll look forward to seeing you out there. Listen, Chris, it was only a quick chat, but glad to know you done well at the rally. We're obviously going to see you at the National Ham Fest. Are you going to Hamzilla?
No, we're not. Blackpool's our next one, and then Hamfest. That's the only other two rallies at the moment on the calendar for us.
Okay, well, Blackpool's just a little bit out of my range at the moment this year, but we'll see you up at the National Ham Fest.
Yep. Okay, great. Look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Okay, here at the rally down here in Raynham, I've just caught up with the organisers, and guys, it's getting near to the end of the rally. You must be thinking you're really enjoying it. I'm going to pass it over to you, sir, because I'm terrible with names, but tell us who you are and how much the rally means to you.
Hi, my name is Andy. It's Mike Zero Hotel Lima Golf. The rally is an essential part of our club, and it gives a lot of people a place to come. It's not only is it they can buy some components, it can be a social scene for them as well, because you see a lot of people sitting around, a lot of people having something to eat, a lot of natterings going on, and it's just a big social event as well.
It certainly is, and we thoroughly enjoyed our time. We spoke to a lot of people, Andy, and sorry, I should have remembered your name. I'm terrible, because I did email you, and we were in email conversation, so yeah, please forgive me on that one. Your colleague is also with us, and yeah, got an interesting badge, but I'll pass you over.
Yeah, we're known as the usual suspects because we tend to do most of the stuff within the club. But no, it's fantastic. If we didn't enjoy doing the rallies, we wouldn't do it. Simple as that. We think it puts something back into the hobby. It's a great place to meet up with people you talk to over here, and why not? Rallies are sort of dying out, so support your local clubs, support your rallies, because otherwise they're going to disappear, and once they're gone, they're gone.
They certainly are, and you've got a reasonably good turnout today, and there's a lot happening here. There's a nice social area where people are sitting down and enjoying. So I've thoroughly enjoyed coming over, and I'm glad you invited us because, I think it's been good for both of us. We're going to promote yourselves, and we've had a lot of people stop by and have a chat with us. It's been good.
Oh, it's been fantastic. So we've had a great day here. We're now doing bacon and sausage rolls for the second year running. They said to be going down the storm. I've been cooking those all morning. So managed to drag myself away. And we've got a raffle going in about 10-15 minutes' time. So we'll be drawing that in a minute.
That sounds good. Now, I did have one of your sausage rolls, and they was pretty damn good, I will say that.
Well, you're still alive, so they can't be that bad.
That's true. Listen, I didn't get your name.
It's Pete.
Okay, Pete. Listen, thank you very much, Andy and Pete, for your time. A wonderful rally. We're thoroughly enjoying ourselves here, so thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
One of the nice things about going to a rally is being able to get a nice cup of tea and a nice cup of coffee. And I've got two lovely ladies in front of me who've been working pretty damn hard all day. So come on, tell us who you are and why are you here.
My name's Jackie. My husband is into radio. He's the one who has sort of collared me into doing the teas and coffees. But it's good fun and I enjoy it.
Yeah, most people are polite, aren't they? So it is nice to be in the rally, but it's good tea. Now yourself.
My name's Andrea, and I've just come out to help my friend Jackie here because I was short-handed, and I've enjoyed myself very much.
Yeah. I mean, as I say, I've had a couple of cups of coffee. You've done well, but you've been doing this all day, so I appreciate from a person who's here what you're actually doing. And as I say, I know they're cooking sausage rolls and bacon rolls outside, but you've got all the other nice stuff, haven't you?
All the sweet things. Yeah, we've got all the cakes and the sweets and the biscuits and all that, yeah. And the best thing is we've got the tea and coffee. Most important job, I think.
I think so.
Absolutely. The tea and coffee needs to be... Oh, and water, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah. Well, I know when my wife sent me over, I asked for just a cup of hot water because she has her own tea bag. But we do that, and that was good. No questions asked.
Good, yeah, that's good. Yeah. The main thing is everyone comes along, has a good day, and the refreshments are here. And you can, it's not overpriced or anything like that. So, it all adds to the day, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Listen, ladies, thank you very, very much for your time and all what you've done for the rally.
Thank you very much indeed. Take care. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the information as much as we did getting it for you. Really enjoyed the Bradhurst Rally. Must do it again another year. Lovely, lovely people. And one or two people wandered by and tried to pick a fight with me over the podcast and told me they hadn't got time to listen to a podcast. But one gentleman in particular spent a long time trying to pick an argument with me, and he'd never listened. And I'm thinking, I'm not arguing with you, sir. There are a lot of people around like yourselves listening to this that are listeners. So, yeah, we promoted. We got some new listeners, and we had a great time promoting the ICQ podcast, along with promoting the rally. And guys, put this one in your calendar for next year. If you haven't been, it's well worth a trip. I hope that's of interest. Well, there, double feature this episode there, guys. Hope you enjoyed it there. First off, Frank, Kilo 4, Foxtrot Mike Hotel, who were discussing launching the Illinois Young Ham Club, and the report there from the BRATS Rally, Dad. I'm sure you guys had great fun at BRATS Rally, and it's good to get you out and about and meeting some listeners in some new locations. Yeah, certainly, Colin, and we thoroughly enjoyed ourselves. I've had some feedback about the original rally report we did at Sears over at Canvey Island, and people seem to like that one in the UK anyway, so that was good. And we have got this rally out the way, the BRATS Rally out the way. We're doing Hamzilla at the end of March, which is down at Sandwich in Kent. And then pretty much it's a little bit quiet as we go forward towards the middle of the year. Well, Dayton is after that for us. So, in fairness, if you guys want us to attend your rally, then please ask. If you want to invite us, ask. But I can't guarantee we can always get to you because there are cost implications, not only cash but time as well. So the guys and myself are also very busy time-wise. So, but if we can make it, we will, Colin, won't we?
Yeah, always so. I'd say, guys, and as much notes you can give us always helps as well in terms of helping us, as I get out to events like that. So let us know, and certainly we'll do our best to see if we can come along and attend your event. We're talking about touching base with people. We've got some feedback here from some of our listeners. We start with Tristan Mills, November 7, Tango Whiskey Mike, and also holds the UK call sign Mike 3, Mike Quebec Golf. He says, first off, hello to Leslie. I remember him well from his days going to the Silverthorne Amateur Radio Club. But he contacts us in response to the gentleman commenting about the AWL proposal to extend limited HF privileges to technicians. Now, Tristan says, today we live in a very different world. HF is known about even less than when I started out in the 90s, and mobile phones have supplanted much of VHF activity. The number of licensees who take the exam but drop the hobby quickly is extraordinarily high, and this is one of the AWL's attempts to reduce that, along with on-the-air lifelong learning and working with clubs. Given people have very little idea about HF today, giving very limited access to HF is hoped to give incentive to upgrade by giving it a taste. In no way is this a slight to general, advanced or extra licensees any more than no code is to those who have passed their Morse test. If we want to talk incentive licensing, there's little incentive to progress from general to extra in the license structure. Most people do it because they want to learn more or because they feel they should, not because of the spectrum. And he says that he personally much prefer the UK model of the major upgrade being more power, i.e. techs have 10 watt HF, generals 50 watt and extra legal limit. But as I say, he says that that's just one of his suggestions for now. So, I mean, I know that this is one of the conversations we have regularly when we compare the UK and the American license about the different privileges. And as I say, I know that power, maybe not so important in the UK because of distance, but it might be one of the reasons that might allow people, say, to justify that extra training course between general and extra.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. As you quite rightly said, there are two different models for the US and the UK, and we limit power, the US limit band allocation. So it's a difficult one, and I'm sorry to say it, Tristan. You know, you're if you're living in the States, you have to abide by their licensing conditions, as you well know. Push up, I would suggest to general as soon as you can, because I'm sure there'll be loads of people over there that would help you with it if you're struggling a little bit. And in fairness, it will be a major sea change for the Americans to adopt our system or us to adopt their system. There would always be people unhappy. So, unfortunately, Tristan, we're trying to make things as common across all areas, but I think you're going to be waiting a long while to get the same sort of privileges without moving up through your licensing. And I must admit, when I studied and read the books, even though I was a full license in the UK, I learnt a lot from the American books as well, because they covered certain topics we don't cover in the UK. So all in all, best of luck along the way.
Yep, certainly so. So two other quick bits of feedback as well. We got a piece of feedback from an episode nearly 100 episodes ago. We did a review of the Yaesu FT450D, and on the Facebook group, sorry, not a Facebook group, on the YouTube channel, James Bonio, KD2 Papa Golf Juliet, so the Well Put Together podcast, and a nice review of the Yaesu FT450D. It's now his primary rig after retiring a 30-year-old Kenwood TS450S. So thanks, James, for that feedback. And while we're talking about getting feedback, Gar Matthews, one of our monthly donors, Golf 1 Victor Whiskey Charlie, was the gentleman who pointed us in the direction of the Soviet spy radio story that we picked up there in the News Roundtable. So thanks, Gar, for pointing us in that direction and allowing us to include that in the show. So thanks out there. As always, guys, you can send us your feedback very easy. Go to ICQPodcast.com and click on the Contact Us page there and drop us a line. Failing that, Facebook groups, YouTube channels, anywhere else you can see us well, you're more than willing to pop us a line on those channels as well. While you're there, why not do what our monthly and subscriptions donors did this episode and support the show by making a donation. So do that very easy. Go to ICQPodcast.com/donate and say your donations, keep us advert free, help us continue to improve the show, and help us as well pay fuel costs for attending rallies, etc. as well along the way. So anything you send away, always greatly appreciated. As mentioned earlier on, I hope you appreciated Frank's feature in relation to launching the Illinois Young Ham Club and our report from the BRATS Rally. And I say, guys, it's a double feature this episode, so lots for you to listen to. We'd like to thank Leslie, Golf Zero Charlie India Bravo, Edmund, Mike Zero Mike November Golf, and Dan, Kilo Bravo 4, November Uniform, for taking part in News Roundtable. You, Dad, I say thanks a lot for taking time there. Well, Dad, so I know you've had a busy time there, but I know you're up to something the day before release. You're off to HMS Belfast, the weekend we release. Is there anything else you're up to as well over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, you're right. I'm off on Belfast with Chris this weekend, so we'll thoroughly enjoy that. That'll have happened by the time this releases. And I'm in the process of updating the training slides, ready to do an intermediate course in the UK. And I also was contacted the other day by a lady, and this is an initial contact, so she may not come back, but she said she had a number of children that might want to learn amateur radio, but I'm not sure that this one will go further, but I'm hoping it will. I've offered help to do their at least foundation and help her set up anything she needs. So that's another possibility that we can cover at a later date in the podcast. So there's always a lot going on, Colin.
Yeah, very true, very true. Right, well, we need to wrap up this show. We'll say a bit of a long one with a double feature there, so I hope you enjoyed that guys. And of course, I need to send off to the kitchen and find Mrs. B a very fine chocolate biscuit after all the help she gave you last weekend.
Yeah, you certainly do. Mrs. B, I'm sure, thoroughly enjoyed herself, and yeah, it was good to have her there. I think it was a good thing. We got some nice photographs. Martin and Carol took some nice photographs while we were at the rally for me. And I managed to get some reasonable interviews. So we got pictures as well, which we'll put up on the website. So all in all, let's find Mrs. B a cup of tea when she comes in. And a chocky bicky. Because she ain't going to get very many more of them, Colin. She finishes work in a month's time.
Ooh. But surely we still buy chocolate biscuits, though, don't we? I mean, we're not going to stop buying chocolate biscuits.
No. We'll still make her a cup of tea, but we won't have to wait for her to come home from work anymore.
Oh, I see. So more chocolate biscuits because she'll be around more often. There you go.
There you go.
Right then, guys, we'll bid you all 73s, and we'll see you again in a fortnight's time. 73s all.
73.